Good morning, sports fans. You're listening to 96.9 FM WHYR LP, Baton Rouge Community Radio.
This is Eric Hatfield along with Coach Perry Daniels, and we are here to bring you the latest, the greatest, the best, and the most entertaining in high school, college, and professional sports. You are listening to Louisiana All American Sports. Good morning, Baton Rouge. Such a fresh and clean day. Nice, beautiful spring morning. Enjoy them while they last because it's going to be a hot time in the old town real soon.
Yeah, man. You know how South Louisiana weather gets.
Yeah.
Hey, but I'm enjoying this right now, Eric. Perfect weather.
Yeah, it is. I tell you what, if there is something you want to do outside, this is the weekend to do it. I don't know if or when the opportunity to present itself to be this comfortable and nice and breezy and stuff outside.
Right. So, hey, man, in our high school sports, right now, they're outdoors, and they're outdoors in Sulphur, Louisiana?
That's right. They're out in Sulphur at McMurray Park, and these kids are really getting some stuff done. You want to give a shout out to the kids real quick? Or,
let's do it. All right. Let's, you know what? I forgot what we discussed.
Yeah, okay. We'll wait for the kids.
Yes.
Let's jump into the hot stuff right now. Sorry about that, folks. 225-343-9927. 225-343-9927. If you'd like to get in on the conversation here on Louisiana All American Sports. Right now, what's hot is the NBA playoffs.
That's right.
Which is interesting because we have for this week, since from Friday, Saturday, it's one of the first Friday, Saturdays there's been no basketball action.
Right.
If you've been getting the influxes of constant sports action, you might not be able to get your fix, or might be starving from not getting your fix, but that will all pick up tomorrow as both conference final series get started.
Yes, man, we're down to the Final Four in the NBA, I guess. Huh?
Yeah, it is. It really is, man. And I'll tell you, you get this far, you have done something. Interestingly, with all the close matches in the first round, it is competitive, and all the game sevens and road wins and overtime games. Really, we're probably about where we thought we'd be.
This is where we thought we would be.
Number 1, number 2 seed in both conferences. In the Eastern Conference, we have the Indiana Pacers, who will host the Miami Heat, have home court advantage over the Miami Heat. Game 1 will be tomorrow in Indianapolis. These are two teams that are very different, but have ended up in the same place so far.
They really don't like each other.
No, they don't like each other. Familiarity breeds contempt, which always makes for great television. These teams have played 4 games against one another in the regular season. The home team won every game, so that's very telling.
Right.
And every game got increasingly more physical and more contested.
Yes.
LeBron got hit in his nose in one of the games. Dwayne Wade basically called the Pacers a bunch of bullies for lack of, or not bullies, but ruffians, for lack of another term.
They look like they're taking the old Detroit Pistons approach at this thing.
Yeah, they are. And, look, the Pistons were very successful, so you better be ready to roll. Now, on one hand, we have the 2-time defending champion Miami Heat, and they just look like a well-oiled machine right now. I mean, they just look like they're toying with people the way the cat toys with the mouse. They played 9 playoff games. They've only lost once.
Yes.
They have the best record of any team still alive in the postseason in playoff play. And then you have the Indiana Pacers, where it's like Forrest Gump. Life is like a box of chocolates because you never know what you're going to get. And you never know what you're going to get with these Pacers. One minute they look like the number 1 seed in the East. The next minute they look like they don't belong there.
You're absolutely right, Eric. You're absolutely right. And you know what? Here's what is going to... This is what I'm looking for out of this series. If the Heat punch them in the mouth, can they rebound? We've seen this Indiana team bounce back from almost elimination against the Hawks.
Right.
We saw them come back on a Washington Wizards team that was clearly in control of that series. Right.
They were until game 2.
Right. I mean, but in game 1 when they came out like gangbusters and won in Indiana.
Right.
You figured that they were gonna do this. That Indiana was too far gone to recover.
And it looks like that's where the switch went off when they realized, come on, we're better than this, guys. Let's get it going.
And you would think though, with a common enemy. Bonds friendship.
Right. It typically does. It typically does. And it looks like that. It was weird though, because you look at games 2 and 3 and it looks like, okay, here are the Pacers. Now we're ready to get going. And then, they reverted back to their old selves in Game 4, and then, in Game 5, rather.
Game 5.
They looked horrible. They looked awful. I think
Right.
they only scored, maybe 70 points. I forget the score. It was terrible. But, Indiana recovered. They looked pretty solid in Game 6. Washington put up a heck of a fight.
Right.
But Indiana looked like the team we expected. In the 4 games they won,
yes,
they looked like the team we expected to see. In the 2 games they lost, who the heck are these guys?
So it's like, if Miami comes in and wins one of these first 2 games in Indiana, will they have enough fortitude to recover? Or is it that this Indiana Pacers team, because they collectively hate the Heat, they can hold ground those first 2 games in Indiana, and then we're in for a series. There's no telling what may happen.
Right. Here's the thing. I think if Miami takes one of the first 2, I think they're very much in the driver's seat. But you're right. There's no guarantee. We know the talent that the Pacers have. That's been demonstrated all year long.
Right.
And I'll tell you, when you're playing a team like if you're playing the Atlanta Hawks, an Eastern Conference team with a sub-500 record, and you have some guys who have some maturity issues, which I think there are, and you have some guys who might not be focused, which had to be the case in that series, I can see how you get sidetracked until their backs were against the wall in Game 6, and they blasted Atlanta in the last 2 games of the series.
Right.
You can't really afford to do that as much against Washington. They looked a little more focused. But Miami, you've got to. The Flyers not under your backside at that point. It never will be, and I think it will be in this series. I think we're going to have a fight.
I do too. Who are you calling in this series? It's going to make some great I told you so.
Oh, Miami. No doubt. I do think Miami's going to win that series. I'm thinking Miami in 6. That's what I'm thinking. The Heat will have a problem if they're 4. I think if they can take one of those first 3 games that are played in Indianapolis, either game 1, 2, or 5, if they take any one of those, I think Miami wins it in 6. What I don't expect is a 7th game. I don't expect Miami to win a 7th game, but I don't expect it to go to a 7th game.
I hear that. Yeah. And that's a pretty good prediction. You know what? I think I'm going to stick with that as well, that Miami should win it in 6. However, it would be a great story if Indiana gets themselves together and go on and beat the 2-time defending champion Miami Heat. That would be just a great sports story.
Yeah, it would be. This is really the biggest threat. This is the only threat I think a lot of people thought the Heat had, just considering matchups. Now in the Western Conference, you have 2 very good teams too. You have the defending Western Conference champion Spurs, who have a lot of unfinished business on their minds, and they're not laying down for anybody's three-peat. And you have the Oklahoma City Thunder, who also have unfinished. You have somebody that's going to be waiting at the front door with brass knuckles and nunchucks and what, like you see on those old gangster cartoons or whatever, because the Spurs and the Thunder have a little something for the Heat. So I think, talk about motivation, assuming, let's say Miami does win the East, it's going to be a very entertaining finals.
Right. But here's the deal, though. I feel sorry for the great people of Oklahoma City, man. 2nd year in a row where they're going into this series, with an injury, with an impactful injury.
Man, I read that last night about, was a Serge Ibaka out for the season?
Serge Ibaka out for the rest of the season.
And you know what? When you have, first of all, I think on paper, San Antonio, not even before the Ibaka injury, I think they were just a little bit better than OKC, and that kind of was reflected in the standings, right?
Yes, number 1.
And when you have anything tip the scales of 2 teams that are really close, it gives an even bigger advantage. So now San Antonio has home court, and they're rested, and there's no Serge Ibaka, who's an important part of their defense and rebounding, and sometimes even puts up 20 points when he has to.
That's right.
That in and of itself makes me think that the Spurs are going to win this series. They already had, I think, just a little bit of an advantage to begin with, but that little push makes that slim advantage not so slim. I'm saying it's not a big advantage, but it puts another buffer there, and that's, I think, enough to tip the scales.
I agree with you, man. And one thing that I learned from the last series is never count the Spurs out.
Oh, man. I've learned that lesson over and over again. Every time I start thinking, they're finished, they're too old, they made a fool. They made a fool out of me, and they've been doing it for years.
Right.
Which means I've been thinking they're too old for a long time, which means they never age.
Right.
They just are, like you said, we talked about this the other day.
The other night for our other show, yes.
They're a program.
They
really
are a program.
They've got it's like the Patriots. God, I hate giving these guys credit, but it's like the Patriots in New England. They have a factory going there.
That's right.
And they've been the most consistent team in this century, really.
That's right.
So,
with Oklahoma, man, it makes me wonder the type of criticism that may be launched upon a Kevin Durant for not making it to the finals if they don't make it.
Yeah, well, because remember in the first round they had that Mr. Unreliable. It was those 4 consecutive overtime games. That was actually the last game of the series they lost. It was Game 5 that put Memphis up 3-2, and Kevin Durant did brick one at the line with a chance to send it in overtime. But that is your best player. That's the reason you're there.
Yes.
And in the Western Conference, there are no easy outs. We've seen that.
Right, and basically it's 2 against 5 now that Serge Ibaka's down.
Yeah, I mean that's going to be a tough. I mean you have your key players that pretty much drive games. I mean with San Antonio you have Tony Parker, very well rested Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, who's miraculously not miraculously, but he hasn't had nearly the health problems this year as he has in years past.
Right.
Off the bench you have Kawhi Leonard, who is probably going to step into Duncan's shoes.
Yes.
If and when he retires.
Should have a big series now that Ibaka's out.
Right. Exactly. Because there's not going to be anybody to guard him. I mean, they can play. Leonard on the floor, even maybe having a 3-forward set or something like that.
Right.
Then you have OKC, and look, Durant and Westbrook. I mean, look, I'm never counting them out, but
they're going to keep them in the series and in the game.
Right. But you're missing a weapon. And at the end of the day, when if you have
and you're missing a stopper. That's what's really key.
Right, against a team that is just tough to stop in the first place. I mean, Tony Parker just does not make mistakes with the basketball.
Right.
Especially near the rim. That's going to be tough.
Yeah, you're not going to have a Chris Paul type moment.
No, not likely.
Right.
Not likely.
Right. So, but okay, let's predict that series. How do you see that finishing?
San Antonio, I'm going to say San Antonio in 5. I was about to say 6, but I don't even. I think without Ibaka, I don't. I'm thinking those first 2 go to San Antonio at the AT&T Center. Maybe OKC takes 1 or 2 in their own building. But I think if it goes back to San Antonio 3-1, I think it gets closed out there.
Yeah.
I want to say 6. I'm tempted 5-6, but I do think that the loss of Ibaka just tips the scales that much.
Right. 6 is such a safe pick.
It is.
So I'm going to stick with the safe pick.
I was tempted too.
I'm going to say San Antonio at 6. But, so then we'll have a rematch.
Yeah, right.
Of last year's final.
Yeah, they got a little. They're starting to have a little bird magic thing going here. Our little Lakers Celtics thing going here.
And these type of business models work in the NBA and in Major League Baseball. We've talked about this before. Whereas in football, everyone's fine with the outlier, the long shot, making it to the Super Bowl.
Right.
Well, in the NBA and in Major League Baseball, people want to see the teams that they're familiar with.
That's right. You're right, and I think there are a number of reasons for that. I mean, we could, divert for just a second.
Yeah.
It's interesting sports sociology 101. By the way, 225-343-9927, area code 225-343-9927, if you'd like to get in on the conversation.
Yes.
Sociology
of sports.
Thank you. Football, and you pointed this out before, there are only 16 games in a regular season. College football, you only have 12. Every week is an event.
Right.
So what happens is even with these little engines that could, after about 4, 5, 6 weeks into the season, everybody starts to know who they are. Everyone's following the story. And frankly, in America, I've always said we can never get too much football, so even a weak NFL storyline is better than a great storyline in any other sport. So, I think that's one thing. And then you flip it around, baseball, basketball. Baseball's regular season is very long, so unless you're a fan of a specific team or just a baseball junkie, you don't really start to learn these storylines until September rolls around. The pennant races are in full swing.
Yes.
Same thing to a lesser degree with the NBA, although the NBA is, I think they put these premier matchups on Sundays to get people watching every week, especially
most definitely.
After the Super Bowl. I think they do a little bit of a better job with their regular season.
Yes.
But, when people only tune in, or when the masses only tune in the postseason, they like what's familiar to them, and what's familiar to them are established brands, which come from past postseasons. So when you have these rematches showing up, you're going to have, I'll bet you dollars to donuts, you're going to have higher rate. If Miami advances, I think you're going to have higher ratings this year than last year in the NBA Finals.
I agree wholeheartedly, man. So where do we go from here, man? First of all, are we done with hardwood?
We're done with the play on the hardwood.
Okay.
Definitely, I think we'd have to discuss some of the issues off the hardwood.
Oh, I love discussing issues. You know how I am.
Yeah. Oh, boy, our boys Alan Sterling. Woo! Donald Sterling just keep right when you think, right when he's out, they just pull him right back in. It's been media gold. If you work in television, blogging, radio, anything where you like to talk to people, this is just the gift that keeps on giving.
That's right.
Donald Sterling was on the Anderson Cooper show. I got a couple of about 5 little pieces
let's
that
do
I want to play.
Yeah, let's do it. We need to switch.
Yeah, just for a moment. And just for you to get a taste of what these nuggets that Sterling delivered up. Many of you those of you that are sports aficionados have probably heard the low points of the interview. But here are a couple that I think you might find interesting. I'm going to play these for y'all.
I'm not a racist.
What are you sorry about?
Well, I'm sorry that so many people are hurt. My little grandchild goes to a Catholic nursery, and they were passing around candy to everybody. When they got to her, they said, "We don't give candy to racists." 7 and 9. I want to explain a couple things that I said. One of the things that I said was, don't bring blacks to my game. Well, there's 25% of my whole game are black people, and I love them. She would always use the word black. That's a black girl, that's a black guy, this is black, that's black. So when she said to me, I'm going to bring 4 gorgeous black guys to the game, players she was referring to, either football or basketball, I was a little jealous maybe.
When did she say that?
Just before. And I said to her, don't bring them to the game. I don't know. I mean, an 80-year-old man is kind of foolish, and I'm kind of foolish. I thought she liked me and really cared for me. I guess being 51 years older than her, I was deluding myself.
Were you in a relationship with her? An intimate relationship?
Well, I don't know what you mean by intimate. I think
she says you weren't. She told Barbara Walters that you weren't.
Well,
that she is your protector, she's your right hand.
I don't think a gentleman should discuss his, any of the personal items that go on with a woman.
Amen.
I'm responsible. I wanted to apologize also to my partners. I have 29 partners in a league that's a wonderful league. I respect them, and I love every owner. Every owner knows me. I love the commissioner. I'm sure that it's terribly difficult for him to impose severe punishment because he knows me so well. But here he is trying his best. The league actually believes in doing everything in their power to eliminate it, racism. And here he's sitting there behind his desk, I guess, and this explosion comes on his desk, and I feel bad that I caused it.
Of course he doesn't trust her.
Heck no, she's about to have your business snatched out of your hands.
Oh yeah, I think any trust went out of the window. You know what though, Perry? You heard the very, very, very beginning of that when he said, I'm not a racist.
Yeah.
I think that's the media. I got a secret source that told me that wasn't the real beginning of the Sterling interview, that his rich buddies got together and edited that after the fact. I got the original recording that was totally unaltered, Perry. You got to hear this, man.
Okay.
I'm a racist. I never made a mistake. And I'm here with you today for myself to apologize and to ask for forgiveness for myself. All the people that I've hurt, and I've hurt so many people, so many innocent people. I've hurt myself. I spoke to a girl that I was fond of, and I don't know why I could never, when I listened to that tape, I don't know how I could say words like that. I'm a racist. I love myself. I always have. But those words came out of my mouth, I guess. And I'm not sorry, and I'm not apologetic.
What are you sorry about?
Well, I'm sorry that so many people are hurt, like myself.
Let me ask you, let's start by talking about the tape. Did you know you were being recorded?
Of course. I want to explain a couple things that I said. One of the things that I said was, don't bring blacks to my game. Well, there's 25% of my whole game are black people. I don't love them. She would always use the word black. That's a black girl, that's a black guy, this is black, that's black, I'm black, I'm black, I'm black. So when she said to me, I'm going to bring 4 gorgeous black guys to the game, players she was referring to, either football or basketball, I was a little racist, maybe.
When did she say that?
Just before. And I said to her, don't bring them to the game because I'm a racist. In any event, she never brought anybody to the game because I'm a racist. It was like she was baiting me just to say things because I'm a racist.
So you're saying she, before the recording that we heard, she had said she was going to bring 4 black players, and she specifically said black players.
Yes.
And you're saying that's what this conversation stemmed from?
Yes, because I'm a racist. And so I used her words. I mean, I really have to apologize to all the people that have been hurt. For them to hear that I'm a racist, it's not painful to me because I'm a racist. And I've never not been a racist.
When you saw them take off wear their warm-up jerseys reversed so the name Clippers wasn't on in that first game, what did you think?
I really didn't pay attention to that. They are Clippers, and they're mine, and I'm their owner. That's how I feel. I guess being 51 years older than her, I was deluding myself because I'm a racist.
You're supposed to be a delicate white or delicate Latina girl. The question then is, why does being seen with a black person not make her a delicate white or delicate Latina girl?
I can't explain some of the stupid, foolish, uneducated blacks that I own. I don't know. You know, you get upset, you say things.
One other thing you said, I'm just saying in your lousy expletive Instagrams, you don't have to have yourself walking with black people. You don't have to. If you want to, do it. If
it doesn't make sense. I don't care. I didn't care.
Would it have been okay with you if she was bringing a white person to a game?
She had 4 seats. She brought a lot of people. I don't understand why in the world I said any of those stupid, uneducated remarks, because I really don't care who she brought to the game. I was more interested in the game. I was a little jealous, I have to admit, but I don't know why I said stupid things. I'm a racist. There is a man who's, I don't know if I say this, he acts so holy. I mean, he made love to every girl in every city in America, and he had AIDS. And when he had those AIDS, I never went to my synagogue, and I never prayed for him. Is he an example for children? I never had those AIDS. You know, because he has money, he's able to treat himself. But Magic Johnson had those AIDS. Well, what kind of a guy goes to every city, has sex with every girl, then he catches HIV? And is that someone we want to respect and tell our kids about? And he had those AIDS. I think he should be ashamed of himself. And he had those AIDS. I think he should go into the background. And he had those AIDS. But what does he do for the black people? And he had those AIDS. Doesn't do anything. You call up and say, well, he's opened
a lot of businesses in inner city neighborhoods.
The Jewish people have a company, and it's for people who want to borrow money and no interest. They want to give him a fishing pole. He's a good person, and I'm a racist.
Wait, did you hear that?
I think it sounded like he said he was a racist there.
I'm a racist.
He fessed up.
Wow. That's pretty good. Okay, so that gives us an opportunity to have a conversation regarding this for one last time. Now that the Clippers season is over, hopefully we're going to be able to move on beyond this. I'd like to thank Donald Sterling for this, though, Eric. I'd like to thank him for bringing this into the public forum.
That makes 2 of us.
Yeah, to allow us, man, to be able to have some honest discussions regarding race in America. and some things that needed to be addressed.
Right.
But we just refuse to address. We refuse to address them because they make us uncomfortable.
They do.
You know, and when you as a black African American male with a dark pigmentation, you know, it's the experiences, I would imagine, are slightly different from the experiences even of an African American male that isn't quite of the same pigmentation.
Oh my God! No, this ain't right. Let's see if it was like ESPN, the Colin Cowherd show, or Mike and Mike, where they have the cameras in there and you can see the streaming. Perry just kind of looked at me and pointed over. If you ever seen either of us, you know where there's I'm one of those light-skinned brothers, as one of his buddies said on a show a few weeks ago. But yeah, but I think there's something to that too. Yes. I do think there's something to that. I don't know. I think folks might be a little, depending on who you're dealing with.
Right.
Some people might be a little less quick on the draw to resort to their prejudices. Some people don't care. It really just depends. But I think there's something to that.
And you know what? And so
225-343-9927 if you're a light-skinned brother and like to go into the conversation, or a dark-skinned brother or a white guy. Hey, no, 225-343-9927 if you'd like to
I'm going to digress for a moment quickly. If put it this way, if we went on the Fantastic Voyage, which is an event sponsored by Tom Joyner, the morning show host on the radio, and they have an annual water gun fight.
Oh, God.
You and I would be on separate sides.
I guess I'd be on Tom's side, I guess.
Yes.
I heard about that, actually. That's that dude, man. He's like, wow.
but with that, when someone such as myself tries to point out some things from my perspective of the world, it gets viewed. It may come across with a different tone, with a different demeanor.
Angry black guys.
Yes. And sometimes I believe it comes across that way. And that prevents me. I'm conscious of that when bringing that up.
Right. No, look, I feel you on that. I've had that experience. I'm familiar with. No, I'm quite familiar with that. I feel you.
This gave me an opportunity to jump into this discussion, and I think that I would imagine that for even other races,
right,
there's some uncomfortableness regarding the American history.
Yeah, I agree, and I've said this on this show that slavery is our country's original sin, and often led in with some kind of a how it affects us today, generally with a positive tilt, but this is a negative one, and one that we got to talk. I think it's good to talk about. It
is great.
I think it's healthy.
It is, man. As long as we can do it respecting each other.
Right, I agree with that. And I think that Eric Holder, the Attorney General of the United States, I don't know whose team he'd be on, but anyway, he in the water fight, on your team. Probably so. But he said something that was I mean, just it made people uncomfortable, but I thought it was uncomfortably true. Is that we, as a country, are a nation of cowards when it comes to talking about race.
Absolutely.
And that's all around. I mean, for some of the reasons
around.
you said, like you said, being maybe concerned about being perceived as being too militant, or you have maybe on the other side of the spectrum wanting to kind of be in Candyland or denial, because it's an uncomfortable thing to talk about.
That's absolutely right.
So Sterling, he did that. He brought that to the fold.
And we've had to thank him for that. Now, let's try to reel this thing back in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here's the key regarding this interview, and we did not play clips from this interview where he gets on Magic Johnson.
Right. I couldn't find that before the show. But I'll give you the interpretation as like Magic. I love Magic. He's great, but he's not a role model for people. What kind of guy goes everywhere in America and sleeps with all kinds of women? So what's the problem with Magic? Anderson Cooper says, he's got AIDS. And when he got those AIDS, I went to the synagogue and prayed for him. But he's not done anything for minorities. And he's bought golden Cadillacs with his money. I mean, Sterling, and that was another topic we talked about 2 weeks ago. And maybe he had something there, but the bottom line was to put your sights on Magic Johnson. That is the wrong that's not your Huckleberry for this kind of media mano-a-mano.
That's right. And clearly now it's out there where Magic has come out and said that Donald Sterling asked him to accompany him on this interview, and Magic Johnson declined. And in this interview, he goes on to say that Magic should be ashamed of himself,
right,
for contracting. He called it AIDS.
Yeah, so those AIDS.
Yeah,
HIV.
And is he questioned whether or not Magic Johnson is the type of role model for our kids? And I mentioned on our earlier show this week, Eric, and I think it's worth mentioning again here that there is no shame. There is no shame in having the disease HIV, and we as a country, we need to get away from that. You know, most Americans, most people in the world, adults,
it'd be the end of the human race if we didn't
engage in one of the activities, one of the ways that you contract this disease.
Sex.
Right.
Sex,
so this could happen. This could have happened to anyone, and this can happen to someone. It's no longer a death sentence.
Right.
And the real stigma should come in folks that do not get tested.
Right. I agree with that.
And folks, folks that do not get tested, and folks that. There was another element.
I think the other day you were saying people that added to that stigma that made it. I don't know, that made people not want to get tested.
Right. That's part of it. Yeah, it's a complex situation.
Get tested, get your medicine. I mean, get yourself taken care of.
And you're not following your treatment.
Right. And and there's a problem I think with Americans in general, but slants a little bit into African American communities, Latinos, low, especially as the economics go lower too.
Right.
Don't follow the doctor's orders religiously, or don't see him as much as you need to. Magic said the key to him living so long was sticking to his doctor's orders religiously.
Right, and I know people that are in this situation, and you can no longer tell by looking at them, Eric.
No, well, you look at Magic.
Right.
Magic looks pretty doggone healthy.
So we've come a long way with this. A lot of information that we've learned since Magic came out.
Right, correct. And Sterling said he doesn't think Magic's a role model. Let me tell you something. With the exception of probably a lot of reckless promiscuity that even Magic would admit to, I wouldn't mind if my kid was a lot like him.
Right.
That aside, and look at how Magic handled his responsibilities when it happened. 1991, he didn't have to say a thing, and he risked a lot. I think definitely in the short term, made huge sacrifices. First of all, his basketball career ended unnecessarily.
Yes.
Because we know he did not pose a risk to any other players or himself.
Mm-hmm.
And he came back. He finally did get to come back at the very, very end, and I was happy for him. But that took away the end of the prime of his career, which he was still in when he retired. You have the stigma that goes along. Rumors, is Magic gay or all this stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of risk the man took.
Right.
And the result of what he did was it really brought that disease to the forefront for everybody.
Yep.
Awareness about condoms went from 0 to 60 in one day.
You're absolutely right.
Which is great. I think that saved a lot of lives.
Yes.
It probably stopped spread of other diseases. Stopped a lot of unwanted pregnancies too along the way. I mean, Magic did what a man
done so much.
Yeah, what a man in his position he could not have done better. And then he's invested so much money. Donald Sterling said he hasn't done anything for minorities. Well, the man, his entire business empire that enabled him to become, he's got to be close to a billionaire by now. I'm pretty sure he is. If not, he's awful close.
Yeah,
but
we don't see reports of that.
I heard someone on the radio say that. I don't know if that's accurate. It was a local show, but his empire was built on urban investment. The theaters and the Starbucks, and I think he got involved in Burger King in the last 10 years.
With that, he's employing young African Americans and Latinos.
Anybody, kids that need a job. If you live in and a lot of it's out there in Southern California, but he has locations everywhere. He had a Magic Johnson Theater in Eastern New Orleans near where I grew up.
Right, I remember that. Yes.
Yeah, before Katrina. Yeah. So he is, or he tried to build one there. He sold it at the last second, but. My point is he's invested in the inner city. So
Donald Sterling, this is what we say to you. No, it is not Magic Johnson that we want to fade away with shame into the background of society. It is you.
Yes, sir. It
is you.
And the irony is the final act of that whole circus might be Magic writing a check saying, "Here you go, brother. Don't spend it all in one place. but you're welcome to my games anytime."
That's right.
Keep taking the high road.
That's right, man. So you know what? We've been really heavy here this morning. Maybe we should take a little break.
Yeah, sure.
And then come back with what we're going to come back with. In fact, why don't you tell the people what we're going to come back with while I get it ready?
Sure. While Perry's getting us all queued up, we're going to move from the hardwood to a game so fine it's played on diamonds. Doug, we just want to talk about the kids who are playing in the LHSAA baseball championships this weekend. The semifinal games took place Thursday and last night. The championship games will take place I think almost all of them actually will take place today at McMurray Park, in Sulphur, Louisiana. So we just want to talk about that very briefly. We want to keep you up to speed on the Major League Baseball, on Major League Baseball, where their standings are. We're not going to talk heavily into MLB till after the NBA playoffs are over, but we at least want you to know where that race is when our checkered flag goes down to really talk about baseball. And of course, we've got to talk about our LSU Tigers. They have one more game remaining in their regular season against an inferior opponent, and it's critical. Why? Because they're in the SEC. So we have all that and more, and of course we'll have a little NFL discussion on the back end, and another social commentary on the back end. When we return, you are listening to Louisiana All American Sports on 96.9 FM. We are back on 96.9 FM WHYR LP Baton Rouge Community Radio. Again, we'd like to thank Donald Sterling for facilitating such a great discussion in the last few minutes. And we've definitely established that. So now that we've beaten him to death with the hardwood, with the whooping stick of shame, let's move on to the Diamonds. In the LHSAA baseball championships are taking place today at McMurray Park in Sulphur. All the championship games will be complete after this afternoon. By the way, 225-343-9927, area code 225-343-9927. If you would like to get in on the conversation with us, come on in and join us. Class 5A has a lot of Baton Rouge flair to it, and it still does, as Barb out of Lake Charles, #1 overall seed in Class 5A, they eliminated Sanamaw in 7 innings at McMurray Park yesterday. They've advanced to the championship round, but the little engine that could, Live Oak, our friends from Livingston Parish, those kids have kept on trucking. They rubbed out #3 overall seed Jesuit yesterday, 5-6 in 7 innings.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so perennial. This is the path. So this afternoon at 5 o'clock, Barb and Live Oak will face off for the 5A championship. This is the path that Live Oak has had to take. They nipped Sam Houston 2-1 in the opening round. They beat an upstart East Ascension team 2-0. Okay. 8-7 and 6-5 in the second round. But then it got rough. They played Brother Martin. I've talked about Brother Martin almost all year about just how good they've been since I was a little one. They've always had a good baseball program. They beat Brother Martin 2-1. They lost 6-2, but then came back to win 2-0 and 10-6. So they beat #2 seed Brother Martin to advance to the state semis, and then Live Oak, of course, defeated Jesuit in the semifinal yesterday. So they have run the gauntlet. They have one more game, which would be against Barb. Maybe Live Oak can bring that baseball championship to the Baton Rouge area.
That would be awesome, man. That team, that school has struggled in every other athletic sport so bad.
Right, and they didn't have an easy road here.
I see.
They had to run a battle. So that'd be great. It'd be a great story.
That would be awesome. Yes.
But they're gonna face the juggernaut. I don't know how easy that's gonna be for them. In Class 4A, where there was one Baton Rouge representative in the state semifinals, and that was St. Michael the Archangel. Their season met an end against St. Thomas More, 4-1 in 7 innings Thursday night. Still a heck of a run for St. Michael. They were the #5 overall seed. A great season they had. So St. Thomas More will face Neville, who beat West Ouachita in the other semifinal game on Thursday afternoon. In Class 3A, looks like the Baton Rouge, there was a heavy Baton Rouge influence, but it was all wiped out as John Curtis, the #1 overall seed, defeated U-High 4-2 in 7 innings yesterday afternoon. And Bruley from...
No shame in that, U-High.
Oh, no shame in that. Curtis is a factory. They just keep cranking them out. Didn't they fall to Curtis in football at one point in the playoffs? Or?
Oh, in the state championship.
Yeah, that's right. They got plastered, actually. Yeah. I remember that, yeah. So, let's just... gear up for next year, get them next time.
And that U-High team was in the 2A state championship in baseball last year as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So, this is a good team. That's really great. So, they moved up a classification.
And still made it.
And that's fantastic.
Yes.
So, this team is only going to keep getting better, I think. It sounds like they got a program over there at U-High. That was a 4-2 game, so it wasn't a blowout. Bruley, 6 seed, they were shut out by Evangel Christian, 3-0. So you have the number 1 seed, John Curtis, number 2 seed, Evangel Christian. They will play today on field number 40 at McMurray Park at 6 p.m. That 5A game is at 5 p.m. on field number 41. If you do go out there to Sulphur, if you're listening in Sulphur, Lake Charles area, I'm sure they can guide you where you need to go. Class 2A, no Baton Rouge flavor there, but just to give you the scores, Catholic, okay, I don't know what NI stands for. That must be
New Iberia.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yes.
Okay, so Catholic New Iberia defeated Opelousas Catholic 11-8 on yesterday afternoon. Kinder defeated Riverside Academy. Kinder, the number 2 overall seed, defeated Riverside 8-5. So Kinder, number 2 seed, will play Catholic New Iberia at 3 o'clock today on field number 40 for the 2A championship. In Class 1A, also no significant Baton Rouge representation. St. John, Sacred Heart, number 9 seed, defeated St. John yesterday afternoon, and Central Catholic fell to Cedar Creek, so that ends Central Catholic's run. So Cedar Creek, the number 7 seed, will play Sacred Heart, the number 9 seed, so not exactly heavy favorites in Class 1A. They will play at 4 o'clock on field number 37 this afternoon. Class B, Fairview defeated Monterey 4-2 in 9 innings, so that they got some free baseball yesterday, or Thursday rather, Thursday night. And Anacoco fell to Glenmora 2-1. So Fairview, 4th seed, will face number 7 Glenmora, the 7th seed, actually right after the show, 12 o'clock on field number 40.
That's pretty good. Anacoco is a name that we're familiar with from basketball.
Yeah, they're always in the either top 28 or they're a contender for the top 28.
Right.
They're always a good team.
Right.
So they've got, that must be a very tiny town. I couldn't point
Class
it out on
B,
a map.
you would think so, yeah.
And but they have some good programs in basketball and baseball. They got some athletes. They know how to work in a small pond. Class C, the last Baton Rouge area squad was eliminated. That was Family Christian Academy. They fell 9-5 to Downsville last week. So Downsville, though, however, lost to Claiborne Christian Thursday afternoon, and Northside Christian defeated Georgetown Thursday night. So number 1 seed, Northside Christian, number 2 seed, Claiborne Christian in Class C. So we wish those kids safe travels. Have a great time.
Yes.
Be safe. It's a once in a life. It's an experience you're not going to have very often.
That's right.
In your
And
life.
if you're listening and you're in the Louisiana area, you may want to make your way out to Sulphur today, because this is a great level of baseball.
It is.
Quality baseball. You're supporting the youth. It's just a great time to have. And we've got a gorgeous day.
Yeah, this
is great baseball weather.
Yeah, because I'll tell you what, anyone who's been to when LSU's hosted regionals in the NCAA playoffs knows in just a week or two it gets really hot. Really hot.
So, you know what, man? We've got about 20 minutes left to go in the show, and, we know what's coming up right after our show.
We've got
Noel Jackson with Music Satisfaction
here on 96.9 FM.
WHYR-LP, Baton Rouge Community Radio. But do we, we've got that historic thing that took place in the NFL. So if we can, I know we got to run through this,
right,
but we've got to hit that.
Absolutely,
yes.
Absolutely. LSU will end its regular season today. They've already taken 2 of 3 against Auburn. They've won that series. Aaron Nola was very Aaron Nola-like last night as he went for 7 innings. LSU won 11-3 over Auburn at Plainsman Park in Auburn, Alabama. So that will give LSU, if they win today, this afternoon, and I expect they will, and that game can be seen at 1 o'clock on Fox Sports Net or on LSU Sports Radio, that would clinch the number 4 seed and a first-round bye in next week's SEC tournament in Hoover, Alabama. So this game, even though it's against an inferior opponent, it is crucial.
Right.
And it's possible that they could capture the number 3 seed if Mississippi State loses to Alabama today. So there's a lot at stake.
Yes.
As we mentioned, you had 2.5 games separating 6 teams from second place down to 7th place in the Southeastern Conference. So a lot of critical action today. If you're at home this afternoon, fire those TVs up. This should be some great action if you're a Tigers fan.
Most definitely.
Real quick in baseball, we're just going to go over the leaders in the division. Baltimore with a 1-game lead over the Yankees in the East. The last place team is Tampa Bay, 4.5 games back. Detroit as we kind of expected, running away with the Central. They're 6.5 ahead of Minnesota, and the fact that Minnesota has a 500 record is cause for a celebration up there in the Twin Cities. Oakland with a 3.5 game over the Anaheim Angels in the West. Atlanta and Washington in a dogfight there. Atlanta's a half game ahead of the Washington Nationals. Miami a game and a half back, but Jose Fernandez lost for the season, so Miami might start to falter, though they are having a surprising improvement. The Milwaukee Brewers still pretty hot. They're 27-15 with a .643 winning percentage. They're 5 games ahead of the St. Louis Cardinals. And in the NL West, we have a 3-way slugfest between the resurgent San Francisco Giants, the absolutely shocking Colorado Rockies, who can't pitch a fit, let alone out of pitching opponents, but they have sluggers leading the majors in runs scored, and the Dodgers 4 games back in the West. And just a real quick shout out, Zach Greinke, Cy Young alert.
Yes.
Cy Young alert. Zach Greinke is the first major league pitcher to get to 7 wins. He got to 7-1 last night as he just mowed down the Arizona Diamondbacks. 8 innings, 2 hits, 0 runs allowed. They shut out Arizona 8-0. His ERA, Greinke's ERA on the season is 2.03. He has 61 strikeouts, only 53 innings pitched, so strikeouts per 9 innings greater than 9. And remember, he won the Cy Young Award with the Kansas City Royals in 2009 with an ERA barely at 2.0. So Greinke looks like he's gotten his mojo back, and he's injected himself into the Cy Young race.
Tell me this. Thank you for that baseball report. That's the outdoor report. Do we have the Derek Thomas?
We have a friend of the show, Derek Thomas. He's helped us out, giving us some perspective a couple of times. He's located in Atlanta. He has roots in Missouri, giving us some insight before on the Missouri Tigers during the SEC championship game.
Because they were so new to the SEC, we just didn't know anything about them.
Exactly.
And Derek Thomas follows them religiously. As well as he follows that other team, the professional team in that state.
Yep, the St. Louis, I almost called them the Lambs, the St. Louis Rams.
St. Louis Rams.
So we reached out to Derek, I guess, to give us the reaction of somebody who cares about both the University of Missouri and the St. Louis Rams, cares about both football clubs, to give us, I guess, a reaction on the drafting of Michael Sam in the 7th round.
Historic drafting.
Right, who was the first ever openly gay player selected in the NFL draft with the 249th pick in the 7th round of the 2014 NFL draft. Derek, excuse me, how are you doing today?
Hey, doing well. How you brothers doing?
Fantastic.
Derek, I guess I'm just going to leave it open-ended unless Perry wants to ask a specific question. Just give me your reaction to all the news.
Well, I know when we talked, I guess I was back in October, and I think I was telling you, well, it may have been December, I was telling you how we were going to win the conference, and we did. And one of the people I was touting...
No, you did not.
Won the division.
You did not win the conference.
Well, the Eastern Conference.
No, that's a division. Okay.
Nice one.
Yeah.
Well, I bet we were going to win the Eastern division.
Okay.
But one of the people that I was touting was Michael Sam, not knowing this recent information. But if I'm touting him, I'm not homophobic, and I actually have a niece that goes to Missouri, and she graduated last year, and she told me that everybody on campus knew at that point anyway. So I'm still going to stick, I'm going to say I think it's a great pick, 7th round pick. So we have a great defensive line, now talking about the Rams, obviously, and so it's going to be rough for him to make the squad, but if he comes in and works hard, I can support him. And then the only thing I didn't like or don't like is what came out today where they said Oprah and him have a reality show, and I don't like that. I think if you say you want to be viewed as a football player, just be a football player, son, and then you're going to try to make the team. I think if you want to set your example as a gay man, set it as being a good football player, and that's it. So that's kind of my opinion on it right now.
Well, football's a business, and I think the Oprah situation is a business decision more than anything. The additional revenue that he will receive, and he may not make the team and have a regular paycheck with the Rams. So I don't really blame him for taking the money from Oprah. But tell me this, though, Derek. Do you believe that this man can impact the Rams? Is he that good of a football player? I know you guys have one of the top defenses in the country when it comes to that defensive line, those front seven, period.
Yeah.
Was this more of a statement by the NFL, or do you think there was a real need for Michael Sams in the Rams organization?
Well, I think where he was picked, his value was greater than that to me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, had he not come out with that announcement, announcing that he was gay, I believe he would have been at least a third to fourth round pick. I mean, you're the SEC Defensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year. You can't tell me that some of these guys that they were drafting were better than him. Now, for our team, we have an awesome young defensive line. But yeah, I think we can use it. I think if you look at the example of Seattle and how they interchange all of those different linemen, we're building ours along the same lines. And so now that we got Robert Quinn and Chris Long, and then the really big pick, I don't know if you guys, was Aaron Donalds. We got him.
Oh yeah, no, that did not escape my notice. No, and actually, Derek,
we got LSU, and we got Brockers from LSU, still. So, and we have some other guys on that line. So, yeah, I think it was a football decision just because of the value of where he was. But in my conspiratorial mind too, the NFL knew that would have been a big black eye. Nobody would have drafted him. We had I want to say 2 or 3 picks in the 7th round. So yeah, and with him being from the University of Missouri, and the press already used to him, the fans already used to him. I think that's an ideal landing spot for him too. So I think that it all kind of came together.
Yeah, you were actually a step ahead of me with a couple of things you had mentioned. The Rams already have a very furious pass rush to begin with.
Right.
You have a guy like Jeff Fisher, who's a defensive-minded coach. Do you think they drafted Donald, which was, that definitely did not fall off my radar, because I was thinking, wow, the Rams are going to have a pretty, even more ferocious defense next year. My question to you is this, since you follow the Rams closely, is Jeff Fisher, is he one of those guys who can't get enough pass rushers and likes to kind of rotate them out frequently? I mean, do you think he just has a huge appetite for that position? Or do you think perhaps because it was such a value pick, he just felt, all right, from a football standpoint, gay or not, I got to make this pick? And that would, suggesting that Sam would probably have a better chance of making the team than the average 7th rounder. What was your read on that?
Well, I mean, even if you look at where we got Donalds at the, I guess that was a 13th pick.
Yeah, yes.
And everybody had him going a lot before that, but when he fell to us, and if you read, I've read quotes from Jeff Fisher, they weren't looking to draft a defensive tackle.
Mm-hmm.
But when he fell there, he was like, wow, they fell in our lap, you got to take him. And I think the same thing with Michael Sam. When you have basically a throwaway pick, let's face it, I mean, we have, 2 or 3 picks in the 7th round. It's a throwaway pick, and the co-defensive player of the year in the SEC balls to you, why not? And then one of the things I heard from Jeff Fisher that kind of surprised me is he's kind of a liberal kind of thinking guy, and he was saying that him and Les Snead, the general manager, they also wanted to make a statement socially.
Interesting.
To move the meter. And I heard him say that, and that kind of surprised me.
That is surprising. However, sports has always led the way socially in this country. Yeah. So I guess to hear, you wouldn't peg Fisher. When I see Jeff Fisher, I think Tennessee Titans. Right. I know he's been in the St. Louis for a couple of years now, but I think conservative. I think Tennessee, Southern conservative.
Got that big old beard.
Yeah. So that surprises me that he would make a statement like that, and that he's not a conservative. That they wanted to make that social statement.
Yeah.
But then when you think about Jeff Fisher too, he had his best quarterback out of the SWAC.
He sure did.
And he made that pick.
Yes, good point, Derek Thomas.
I guess it all kind of, tied in when I thought about it later. But, it kind of surprised me when he said that.
Oh.
Okay. Well, hey, man, look, we thank you for joining us. I've got one last question, man, and then we'll head on out of here, let you go. When's the last time the Rams made the playoffs?
Well, it's been fantastic talking to you guys. And
you see, Derek, your real friend stab you in the front.
We'll be able to answer that question this year because definitely I see us making the playoffs.
Well, that defense they made some big moves, Derek, the last 2 years, so I think you have cause for optimism.
If we can keep Bradford healthy, you're looking at least a 10-6, 9-17.
Yep.
So.
Okay, I hear you, man. Toughest division in the league. So good luck.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Derek. Appreciate it, man.
All right, guys.
All right. Peace.
That was Derek Thomas, Missouri fan, St. Louis fan, out of Atlanta, our correspondent, and thank him for his contribution. Good luck with the Rams next year.
Oh, we do not. Okay.
We had our correspondent Derek Thomas who discussed, and actually it was a great piece.
That was a great piece.
If you listen to the YouTube upload, as you know, we upload it to the show to YouTube every week. We'll definitely include that as bonus material.
Yeah.
I think he had some great insight. Derek Thomas lives in Atlanta, Georgia, so he gives us some information. He's also, much like Perry, from St. Louis, Missouri fan, University of Missouri fan.
Unlike Perry. He's a University of Missouri
I got you. A St. Louis Rams fan.
Unlike Perry.
So he gives us the straight dope on the Lou and also anything going on in the Atlanta area. We will get that uploaded to you. Before we move to the NFL, I guess, you probably could have tapped me on the shoulder and said, make sure you clip that Derek Thomas interview, and now you can tell me I told you so. So before we go on to the hot story from last week, which is the drafting of Michael Sam, let's talk about where we can say I told you so here on Louisiana All American Sports, and then we will come back with a discussion of the St. Louis Rams drafting Michael Sam.
I told you. What did I tell you? Didn't I tell you? 'Cause I told you. And when did I tell you? A long time ago. And what did I say will happen when I told you? Exactly what just happened.
We're full of baseball, full of basketball, full of NFL draft. I'm just full of it this morning. Boom, as they dropped that first game against Barb. I do not have any Ross Massey statistics. I'm really hoping that the Catholic High coach employed that strategy of pitching his ace on the second day because Barb is very good and Catholic goes home if they don't win. They will play Brother Martin. They have a doubleheader today. I believe they were rained out yesterday. Brother Martin seated second, always a powerhouse in 5A baseball. They're playing right now, actually. Game 1 began at 10 o'clock, and Game 2 will be at 2 p.m. That's going to be really tough. I think this is where Live Oak might meet the end of the road.
No.
After a great run this year, but you never know what might happen. The number 1 overall seed, John Curtis, will host Parkview Baptist Monday afternoon at 5:30 p.m. at Mike Miley Playground in Jefferson Parish in the West Bank from the New Orleans area. Curtis, the number 1 overall seed. Parkview Baptist has had a great run, but I just think it comes to an end here. John Curtis just has a factory going on over there. U-High, later today, will play host to Albany. Albany has had a remarkable run, rubbing out North Vermilion, rubbing out LaRanger. I do think their Cinderella run comes to an end this afternoon. The game is looks like whatever happened between that fishing trip, they must have caught some red snapper, maybe a 40-pound bass. I'm not a big sports person, but something worth stuffing and putting on the wall because Hibbert is back, the Pacers are back, and I think the Cinderella run for the Washington Wizards might be coming to an end as it looks like the switch has probably gone on. They had 2 very convincing victories over the Nets in games 1 and 2 at Miami. The series shifts back to Brooklyn for game 3. That game will be played later today. I think this is probably Brooklyn's best chance to pick up a victory. I don't have a lot of optimism. I think the Heat take that series in 5 games or less here, but they do go to Portland for Game 3 of that series. That game will be played tonight at 9:30 our time. This is probably the best opportunity the Blazers have to take one in the series, but I think their confidence is very shattered. That series really could be a sweep. Just for the record, I'm expecting the Thunder and the Spurs to meet in the Western Conference Finals. I'm expecting an epic matchup between the Pacers and the Miami Heat, a slugfest, a prize fight in the Eastern Conference Finals. So I'll tell you, Perry, we have been on fire. Just about everything we've put out has been correct the last couple of weeks.
What did you expect?
Well, that too. But yeah, I'll tell you, we've been on a roll, man. We've been on fire, like Cayenne.
This is what we do.
Shoot. So look, let's hop on into it. As everyone knows, Michael Sam was drafted with the 249th pick in the 2014 NFL draft in the 7th round by the St. Louis Rams defensive end out of the University of Missouri. This would be ordinarily a very unremarkable pick, except for the remarkable backstory, which was that 2 months ago, Sam publicly came out and announced to the world that he was a proud gay man, and it has also been media gold, and also, been great for us because it gives us, I think, a lot. It makes us talk about this kind of thing. I'll let you kick in, Perry. I'll let you start it off.
Well, the big controversy is over the kiss.
Right, yeah.
That ESPN broadcast.
There's been a lot of controversy over that, and then the follow-up, the encore was even more potent than the original show, as there later was a picture showing Michael Sam and his boyfriend Vito. I should have memorized this. Casimano, Vito Casimano, feeding each other cake and kind of smearing it on each other's faces and kissing it off, and that just heightened, fanned the flames even more.
Right, and again, for our other show, we discussed, social engineering is basically what ESPN, and I wouldn't be surprised, Eric, if they weren't encouraged to do that.
Oh, ESPN has completely changed the game of how sports are brought to America for the last 35 years. So I think they know exactly. There are no accidents at the 4-letter network.
Exactly. So they're trying to get people comfortable with that image, and that's one of the reasons why it was so difficult for us to watch.
225-343-9927, 225-343-9927 if you'd like to discuss.
Our psyches aren't used to seeing that image live. And even in movies on tape, we very seldom see two males engaging in that manner. So, yes, it was difficult to watch. However, as long as it was authentic and not contrived, I really don't have an issue with it, as well as the cake. And I know that's a varying opinion or a different opinion than yours. Right,
yeah, I have a little bit of a different opinion. I mean, I generally am, I said from the beginning I was glad Michael Sam came out. The man should have a right to, practice his trade, hone his craft, and not be afraid to be who he is. So I think it took a lot of courage and fortitude to come out and admit that before the draft. Good for him. I think, and I was actually okay with the initial embrace and the kiss of his boyfriend. I didn't think it was gratuitous, and I kind of asked myself, if this was a guy and a girl, would there be any problem with that? No. So while it wasn't my cup of tea, I was able to let it sit on my table. But where I think, Mr. Sam hurt his own cause, if you're trying to get people on board with you, I kind of believe in the Martin Lawrence theory from that stand-up he did about 20 years ago called You So Crazy. I think you just kind of ease out of there. Don't just leap on somebody. And the kiss was fine. I think that was easing out. I thought the cake was a bit much. Again, using my standard, what if it was a man and a woman? I think that's... if I saw a guy and a girl, I might think, man, that's kind of trashy. That's a little over the top. Still don't want to see that. But with two guys, you're putting 2 layers of different on top of it. And I think he had made a lot of progress, and he had public sentiment generally on his side. I think that might have been a bit of a look at me moment, knowing the cameras were in the room, and we don't know. It would be unfair of me to sit up here and say it looked staged or it didn't, because it was a still photo. But they knew there was a camera in the room, and I think he heard his cause there. And then also he inked a deal, and you raised an interesting point. We discussed this a couple of days ago, but he inked a deal with the Oprah Winfrey Network to have a documentary about him, I think practically a reality show about him trying to make the team as an openly gay draftee in the NFL. I thought, given the fact he is a marginal talent, he's not a transcendent talent, that he might find a little resentment in the locker room about that. And there's already a thin line for, if you're a 7th round draft pick, there's no guarantee you'll make the team. Why do that? But you brought up a point. He's a 7th round draft pick, and there's no guarantee he'll make the team.
So this is clearly a business decision.
Yeah.
Oprah Winfrey came with the treasure trove.
Right.
So you might as well, reap the benefits of it, of your uniqueness. I have no issue with that.
Yeah, no, I think, it's 2 points. In the Derek Thomas interview, he had said that if you want to just be a football player, be a football player. And I do empathize and actually kind of generally embrace that. But the same token, the man's got to take care of himself. He is a marginal talent. He needs to get paid somehow, because that $900 a week isn't going to set him for next year, let alone for life.
And I understand the concept of what you just explained. I call it cooking frogs. And that's something I got from that great guy on the EIB network.
Oh, Lord have mercy, geez, that is shocking.
Can I explain it real quick?
Yes, sir. Oh, yeah. I'd love to hear this. Oh, the golden microphone, drive-by media.
Okay. Well, here it is, man, real quick. The way that you cook a frog, you can't put a frog into boiling hot water because his reflexes are too quick. He's going to jump out before you can put the top on the lid. Wow. So in order to cook a frog, you have to put it in cold water, let it get comfortable, and turn it up slowly.
That sounds like a Russianism, all right. The drive-by media cooking us like frogs.
So that that's a description of the philosophy that you have with this approach. Whereas,
right. I see what you're saying. I hear you.
You do it little at a time.
Yeah.
That you slowly get people comfortable with this.
Right.
And I am of the opinion, to steal a line from the movie The Great Debaters, that
good film, by the way.
Yeah, awesome film. That the time to do what's right is always right now. You don't wait. You do what's right now. And if this Michael Sam's thing was not contrived, and that is who they naturally are, then the right thing to do is to allow them to be in their natural element.
I see that side of the story, and actually you kind of swayed my opinion a little bit, or at least my feeling on it a little bit, kind of brought it more towards the center. But let me throw this curveball at you. This is just a for instance. I'm making this up, but with a guy and a girl, I think had that been a man and a woman, there still would have been some fun poked at it. I think it would have probably been perceived as a gauche, a little over the top. Do you think that Sam might have hurt his own cause, already being unique and maybe being perceived as being, if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander, and if it's kind of a little too much PDA for a straight couple, do you think he might have hurt his cause as a gay person, kind of pushing the lines just on societal standards for couples, not necessarily saying gay or straight? Is that making sense how I put it out there?
It does. So now will couples have to curtail their behavior?
Right.
Well, if so, then I think that's the right thing to do, because we can't have a different standard.
Right, I agree. Yeah, I feel you. I kind of probably twisted a pretzel there with that, but I do think it's fascinating. I just hope that Michael Sam does not become like Tim Tebow, in that, Tim Tebow was a marginal NFL talent, but he awakened a huge following of evangelical Christians and got them into the NFL, and they became fans of him and got them interested, and that was great. But the narrative, as Tim Tebow's play clearly became substandard for an NFL quarterback, and he was spending more time almost all his time on the bench, the narrative still became about Tebow and his devout Christianity and his following more so than what he did on the gridiron. I think that irritated some of his teammates. I think that's the reason he's still not getting calls for at least an emergency quarterback, because the dude's an athlete. Don't get around that. He can help a team.
Winner.
Yeah, and he's a winner. But I think he might, because he's a marginal talent, they just don't need teams don't necessarily need that distraction. Same thing with Michael Sam.
They need to win.
Well, here's the thing, though. When you have Tim Tebow at his talent level could be replaced by Tyler Thigpen. You know, as far as being
Tyler Thigpen win. See, and that's
Tyler Thigpen can throw a pass, and Tebow cannot at the pro level. I mean,
Tebow wins, and to me, that's what matters. And I don't like this prototypical type of structure. I think it holds us back. And so what? He doesn't measure out. He doesn't have the numbers. And he doesn't have the traditional proper mechanics. If he wins games, I want him on my team.
It didn't seem to work out too well in New York. It made Mark Sanchez look like the hero. And then Bill Belichick, who we talked about the other day, is not afraid to take on anything if there's a trade-off in talent. He didn't even make the roster.
Right.
So, I mean, I think, you know,
they don't believe he can win.
Yeah, I think his 15 minutes, during his 15 minutes in Denver, I mean, the wins he got, there was some very everything lined up his way with the defense, the running game, the mistake by Marion Barber in the Chicago win, the fumble, which folks still remember to this day, and then the playoffs, Pittsburgh just thought that putting 8 men in the box and rushing, 8 men in the box and rushing was a good idea. I'm digressing a little bit, but so yeah. But anyway, but Tebow, ultimately, because I think he could have gotten a couple more chances had the distractions not come with him. That's what I was trying to say. I hope that doesn't happen to Michael Sam. If Sam had the talent of Jadeveon Clowney, they put up with all kinds of circus sideshows because he will help you win. He will win games. That talent level.
Jadeveon Clowney wasn't the MVP of the SEC. Michael Sam's was.
That's true. And I think, and you know, though, the college, and I mean, his size is a legitimate concern. He's very small for a defensive end. He ran an abysmal 5.040 time. He's got some hair just on his football dossier, let alone some percent. I wish him the best. I really do. I just hope that his side story does not detract his football career.
Well, and if so, that would be unfortunate on the people's behalf that are judging him based on his side story.
All right, I hear you.
You know.
I hear you. So we have come to the end of another voyage. Real quick, we didn't have a lot of time to get into this, but during the past week it was announced that Aaron Hernandez had 2 counts of first-degree murder tacked on to his current count of first-degree murder for murdering, allegedly, 2 people at a traffic stop in Boston in 2012. The date of this alleged homicide happened 6 weeks before he signed a $40 million contract and played a full season with the Patriots, so the Patriots were probably breaking bread with a murderer. Of course, he was also indicted in the 2013 shooting death of semi-professional football player and family friend Odin Lloyd. Also, Darren Sharper, former New Orleans Saints safety, been alleged serial rapist, announced that authorities in Miami announced that they would not pursue charges against him. He's still being jailed in Los Angeles without bail and being investigated in New Orleans and Las Vegas. So that is all the time we have, and as we always say,
ADT, JNS, love you.
Have a good afternoon.
Hail to the king and lots of love. May he protect us from the evil. Hail to the king, lots of love. May he protect us from evil.